she has a really great selection of JDM or Japanese domestic market classic race cars, and I hope one day we'll get to see the whole garage. But in the meantime, let's have a look at this one, which is the Mazda Savanna as it was sold in Japan, or the Mazda RX3 as it was sold in the United States. Before moving on, welcome back to the channel and the showcase series where we take a deeper dive into one of the cars from my garages. So the Mazda RX3 or Savanna. This was a fairly humble car to start with. It was made as a saloon, as a coupe, which was the most popular and shown here, and also as an estate car. It was powered by an almost 1 litre rotary engine called the Wankel, but of course we don't want to say Wankel because we may have a few sniggers at the back, so I won't say Wankel again in this video at all. This car also had quite a successful racing career. In fact, some still race, I think, in classic racing, and I based mine on the car that you can see on the inset picture here. In game it's the Savestra, and it does have parts from other similar Japanese cars on it, so it's not a pure copy. But how does it drive? Well, firstly the noise. It has that sort of smooth, high revving sound you'd expect from a rotary engine, but also it does sound a bit like a 4-cylinder to me, but overall I think it's a pretty good sound. The first thing I noticed when I took this car out for a drive after a long time was the grip. Those wide tyres and the suspension give it a huge amount, and when you're cornering it almost feels unreal at times how fast it will go around the corner. But then there is a downside to this, which is when it finally breaks traction, it can then be quite snappy, so rather than just drifting into a power slide, of which there's very few in this entire video, you more get a snap and a whip back again as you catch it, or it might even go completely like it did there. As if that grip wasn't enough, it accelerates very well, which is great. Top speed feels a little low to me. It spends quite a bit of time just jammed up against the rev limiter in top gear. But overall, it's very promising, and I'm looking forward to getting away from these NPC cars and getting on the track and seeing how it goes. Moving on to the customization available on this car, we'll look at how I did this one later, but there is a lot of customization, and you can make sort of civilian versions, drift versions, race versions, and there's enough liveries to have quite a bit of fun. If you look at the livery I used on the car in last year's garage video, you'll see it's the same as the bottom left car, which is the Liberty Walk RX3. And Liberty Walk are a Japanese customizing firm that make things rather low and rather wide. However, it's not low enough and wide enough in the game, so I chose to go more like the race car on the bottom right, although the entire colour scheme is inverted. So, a few more ideas of things you can do with the car. So moving on to the racetrack, I found this quite a consistent car to drive. I only did 7 laps, I didn't feel the need to particularly go out again with the car. Rides the bumps pretty well, which always helps. I mention this every time, I know, whether a car does or whether it doesn't. Huge cornering grip, very good brakes and very good acceleration, so it did very creditably around the track. On the long straights it was soon up against the rev limiter, and I did feel that that was all that was holding it back really, was a little bit of top speed. The car sits in the Sports Classics class. It's not competitive there. It's quite a few seconds behind the lead cars. It's also a couple of seconds behind the Retinue Mark II, which I did in episode 14. So a great driving car, but I would not be buying it purely to win this class because I think you'll be a little bit disappointed. Interestingly, I fell about 1 second behind the Retinue Mark II in my testing. You can see the time at the top. A quick look at the customization. As always, if I don't show it, it's stock, and all the performance parts on this car certainly are maximum. So the front bumper is the primary with splitter. The back, I had the removed bumper. The roll cage, of course, because we're making a race car. And the big bore exhaust looked the closest, I thought. Secondary skinny fenders. And the lights and intakes is a close match. Race cars always have those sort of intakes. The side vented hood. Spenders for the livery is not quite perfect to the car I chose, but it's pretty good. Lightweight mirrors are very accurate. I went blue for the primary colour, that's a metallic by the way, with a surf blue pearlescent. and secondary colour also blue. The white is coming from the livery, in case you were wondering. The high ducktail is very typical of those sort of race cars. Sport suspension to lower it down as far as we can. The wheels come from the street category, Cosmo Mark II, and in this case I've chosen to paint them in bronze. Well, while she takes the car out for a Sunday afternoon drive in the countryside, we need to rate the car. Starting with looks, I'm going to give the car 4 stars. It looks superb, but you will have noticed quite a few little differences between this car and an RX3 / Savannah as you saw some of the comparison photographs, so 4 stars. I think it's a really great driving car, but as I have mentioned, you can get a little bit of flip if you leave a corner too quickly, simply because of the huge amount of grip finally letting go, and of course it's not the top of its class for racing, so I think 4 stars is a decent score for that. Then we move on to the difficult category, value for money. If you want a classic JDM drift car or race car in your collection, or you even want to do the Liberty Walk car, then for $1 million this is 5 stars. It's well worth putting there. But if you just want something to race around, to drive, to look good, to give you the sort of old school vibe, well, there are some cheaper cars that will do that, and then this would only be about 3 stars. So I think we'll average that out at 4 stars. So funnily enough, this car has scored 4 stars in every category. I love to do car reviews that somebody else has chosen for me to do, but unfortunately I didn't have one this time, so it was the use of a random number generator and my 2022 garage table that selected this car for review, and I really enjoyed doing it. So if you have a car you'd like me to review, please do say in the comments below. Otherwise, I hope you found this informative, entertaining, and thank you so much for watching.